The flames of the pagan altars illuminated the night, and the cries of mothers echoed through the streets of the holy city. A king had become the cruelest ruler Israel had ever known. He sacrificed his own son in pagan rituals and spilled so much innocent blood that the streets of Jerusalem turned red. But what happened next left the entire kingdom in shock. No one could have imagined that the cruelest man in the Bible would become the greatest example of God's power of forgiveness. How was this possible? How did the most wicked king in history transform into a symbol of redemption? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share in the comments which state you are watching this extraordinary story from. King Hezekiah, one of the most righteous rulers Judah had ever known, lay on his deathbed. His son Manasseh, a mere 12-year-old boy, watched with frightened eyes as his father's life slipped away. The entire kingdom mourned the loss of the great king who destroyed the pagan altars and restored true worship in Jerusalem. But the crown was far too heavy for such a young head. Soon after taking the throne, strange advisors began to roam the palace, whispering promises of power into the young king's ears. They spoke of ancient magic and foreign gods that could make him more powerful than his father. The temple priests watched in horror as Manasseh, day after day, undid his father's reforms. The climax came when the young king announced his first official order, the reconstruction of the pagan altars. The decision sent shockwaves throughout the kingdom, marking the beginning of an era of darkness. Manasseh's transformation was swift and terrifying. While religious leaders protested his actions, he found support among those who sought power and riches through the new pagan practices. One advisor, in particular, from the northern lands, won his complete trust, introducing darker and darker rituals. The palace, once a place of justice and worship, became a center of occult practices. At night, strange sounds echoed through the halls, and the smoke of forbidden incense rose from the windows. The young king had tasted the power of darkness and was hungry for more, but his closest advisor harbored a deadly secret. During the nights, he secretly met with emissaries from Assyria, revealing the kingdom's weaknesses and Jerusalem's deepest secrets. Manasseh, blinded by power, did not realize he was being manipulated, and his heart hardened more and more against the God of his ancestors. The holy city of Jerusalem, which was meant to be a beacon of light for the nations, was plunging into deep darkness, and the worst was yet to come. Before continuing, if you believe that no one is too far from God's love, leave your like now and comment. God can transform me. Let's show Satan that God's power is greater than any darkness. On a moonless night, as Manasseh walked through the dark corridors of the palace, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Isaiah, the ancient prophet who had advised his father. Now, an elderly man with hair as white as snow, his eyes still shone with wisdom, fixed intensely on the young king, son of Hezekiah. His voice echoed through the empty halls. The cries of the innocent reached the heavens. The Lord will not remain silent forever. Manasseh, disturbed by the sudden appearance, ordered his guards to expel the prophet. But Isaiah's words kept echoing in his mind. That same night, as he searched the ancient royal library, he found the scrolls documenting his father's reign, records of miracles, answered prayers, a prosperous nation under divine blessing. For a moment, his hands trembled as he touched the ancient writings. But Samuel was beside him, whispering words of scorn. Your father was weak. He settled for scraps of power when he could have had everything, murmured the dark voice. In a burst of rage, Manasseh ordered the scrolls to be locked away in the palace dungeons. Signs began appearing all over Jerusalem. Shooting stars streaked across the night sky like tears of fire, and strange omens were whispered in the streets. The prophet Isaiah continued to appear at unexpected moments, his warnings becoming more urgent, but Manasseh's heart only grew harder. Manasseh's power had reached its peak. Pagan altars now covered every hill around Jerusalem, and his name was feared in all the neighboring nations. Instead of seeking the true cause of the calamity, Manasseh convinced himself that the followers of his ancestors' God were to blame. They bring the curse upon our land, he declared in a furious outburst during a council meeting. Their prayers and their loyalty to the old God prevent the new gods from fully blessing us. The persecution that followed was relentless. Entire families who refused to participate in pagan rituals were expelled from their homes. The few faithful priests who remained were hunted like criminals. Some were thrown into deep dungeons, while others simply disappeared into the night. The lowest point came when Manasseh ordered the construction of a new altar within the temple itself, desecrating the sacred place with idols and pagan rituals. As the statue of a foreign deity was raised in the Holy of Holies, the earth trembled and dark clouds covered the sky. Yet even this sign was not enough to awaken the king from his madness. The city, once known for its devotion and justice, became a place of shadows and fear. The remaining faithful gathered in caves and hidden places, their prayers mixed with tears as they pleaded for divine intervention. But the worst was yet to come, for Manasseh's actions had drawn the attention of forces far beyond his understanding, and the price of his rebellion would be exacted in ways he could never have imagined. Seeking even more power, Manasseh turned his eyes to the most feared empire of that time, Assyria. In a grand ceremony in the palace gardens, he welcomed the Assyrian emissaries, who brought not only promises of military alliance, but also new rituals and practices even darker than before. The decision to ally with the Assyrians, infamous for their brutality, caused a deep rift within Jerusalem's court. A group of nobles, led by Josiah, a distant cousin of the king, began to meet in secret. They saw how the once prosperous kingdom was being destroyed, not just by drought, but by the madness of its ruler. Our king has sold not only his own soul, but the soul of the entire kingdom, Josiah whispered during one of these clandestine meetings, held in the catacombs beneath the city. The blood of the innocent cries out for justice. But Manasseh, increasingly paranoid, had planted spies in every corner of the kingdom. Soon, rumors of conspiracy reached his ears. His response was swift and brutal. In a single night, dozens of nobles were arrested. Some were executed publicly. Others vanished into the depths of the palace dungeons. Josiah barely escaped, fleeing into the desert with a small group of followers. It was during a particularly dark ritual that Manasseh discovered the prophecy. Amid the smoke of exotic incense and the sound of pagan chants, an ancient and terrible voice echoed to the throne room. The king who abandons his God will be abandoned by his power. In chains he shall be taken. In tears he shall return. The prophecy shook Manasseh more than he admitted. His nightmares became more frequent, filled with visions of chains and captivity. In his growing paranoia, he began to see traitors in every shadow, conspirators in every whisper. Samuel, who had been his closest advisor for years, tried to soothe the king's fears. "They are just empty words, my lord," he said. "With our combined power, no prophecy can stop us." But destiny had other plans. On a stormy night, a group of assassins managed to infiltrate the palace. When they reached the royal chambers, they found Samuel standing guard. In the battle that followed, the advisor, whether out of loyalty or guilt, sacrificed himself to protect the king, falling with multiple daggers embedded in his body. Samuel's death pushed Manasseh even deeper into the abyss of madness. Now completely paranoid, he ordered the construction of a network of secret tunnels beneath the palace, passages that only he knew. His orders became more erratic and cruel. Anyone who dared question his decisions was immediately branded a traitor. The king began sleeping in a different room each night, surrounded by guards and protected by pagan amulets. His obsession with spiritual protection led him to intensify the forbidden rituals. The smell of incense and sacrifices never left the palace, and the screams that echoed through the night made the citizens of Jerusalem tremble in their beds. But the prophecy continued to echo in his mind, a constant shadow that no amount of power could dispel. Without his knowledge, the wheels of fate were already turning. His fall would be even more spectacular than his rise to the power of darkness. Now you know that the enemy trembles when we declare our faith. Let's make hell tremble. Leave your like and comment. Jesus is the greatest. The betrayal came like a lightning bolt in a clear sky. The Assyrians, whom Manasseh had considered allies, revealed their true nature. During a banquet in the royal palace, amidst the celebrations, Assyrian guards emerged from the shadows with swords in hand. The king, who had imprisoned others for so long, now found himself the victim of his own web of deceit. Shackled like an animal, Manasseh was dragged to the streets of Jerusalem in full view of his people. The same people he had terrorized for years now watched in silence as he was humiliated. The shackles on his wrists were bronze, but the weight on his soul was infinitely heavier. In the darkness of his cell in Babylon, surrounded by stench and dampness, Manasseh began to dream of his father. The memories of his childhood, long suppressed, began to surface like bubbles in murky water. He recalled the morning prayers, the stories of the God of Abraham, the promises of divine protection that his father had so deeply valued. During the long days of his captivity, Manasseh began to hear reports from travelers about the situation in Jerusalem. Each story was like a dagger to his heart. The temple, desecrated by his actions, lay in ruins. Entire families had been destroyed by his persecution. The city he should have protected had become a place of darkness and suffering. The weight of guilt crushed him night after night. Alone in his cell, he revisited every decision, every act of cruelty, every moment when he had chosen power over justice. The tears that had long dried up in his hardened heart now flowed freely. It was in this moment of utter despair that something extraordinary happened. Some of the priests he had persecuted, who had managed to escape to Babylon, began to visit him in secret. Instead of revenge, they brought words of hope and forgiveness. They saw in his suffering an opportunity for redemption that had once seemed impossible in the solitude of his cell. Manasseh faced his true enemy, himself. The voices of darkness still whispered in his ears, offering power and vengeance. But now, he could clearly see the emptiness of those promises. One night, after a particularly terrifying nightmare in which he relived all the horrors he had inflicted, Manasseh fell to his knees. For the first time in decades, he prayed, not to idols or false gods, but to the God of his fathers. His prayer was not a plea for deliverance, but a cry of true repentance. "Lord," he whispered through tears, "I have sinned more grievously than all before me." The blood of the innocent stains my hands, and the darkness I allowed in your sacred temple cries out for justice. I do not deserve forgiveness, but I beg for your mercy. Miraculously, after years in captivity, Manasseh was set free. His return to Jerusalem was not triumphant, like his past entrances into the city. He came back as a broken man, but with a renewed purpose. His first action was to order the destruction of all the pagan altars he had built with his own hands. He helped tear down the idols and cleanse the temple. Each strike against the pagan statues was an act of liberation, a declaration of war against the darkness he had once embraced. For so long, the reconstruction was not easy. Many doubted his change, and the scars of his previous reign were too deep to be forgotten quickly. But Manasseh persevered. Day after day, he worked to restore not only the physical icons, but also the faith and trust of his people. He established new laws, protecting the freedom to worship the true God, and provided resources for families he had harmed. On Shabbat nights, the sacred songs could once again be heard echoing to the streets of Jerusalem. The end of Manasseh's life was marked by humility and continuous repentance. He never tried to minimize his past crimes, but worked tirelessly to repair what he could. His story became a living testament to the power of divine forgiveness and the possibility of change, even for the most corrupt hearts. When he finally passed away, he was not buried with the pomp of a mighty king, but with the dignity of a redeemed man. His legacy remained an eternal reminder that no sin is too great for God's mercy, nor any heart too dark to be reached by divine light. The scars of his reign never completely disappeared from Jerusalem, but his story of redemption continued to inspire generations. It was a powerful reminder that even in the deepest valley of darkness, there's always a path back to the light if there is true repentance. Did this story touch your heart? Show your gratitude to God by leaving a like and commenting. God's forgiveness is greater than all my sins. Do you want to hear one of the most astonishing stories in the Bible? Stay tuned. In this video, we will tell the story of Gomer, a woman who betrayed her husband countless times until God intervened. Imagine this. God commands a prophet to marry a woman, knowing she will betray him repeatedly. Why? What is the purpose behind such a shocking divine order? Click and watch to find out.